If you've been looking at budget 4K dash cams, you've probably noticed that the price difference can be pretty significant, even when the feature lists look surprisingly similar. So today we're putting two cameras head-to-head that take slightly different approaches to the same goal: the Pelsee S3 Ultra and the TORVO TD3. Both give us 4K front recording, a rear camera, Wi-Fi, GPS, parking features, and app control. But the way they handle those features is quite different. The Pelsee comes in at around $220 and focuses more on premium low-light performance, easier parking monitoring, and a more feature-packed setup. The TORVO TD3, on the other hand, comes in much cheaper and still gives us 4K recording, a 64GB card in the box, solid night performance, and a straightforward everyday experience. So the real question here isn't just which one has more features, it's which one gives us the better value for the money. And depending on what we actually need from a dashcam, the answer might be different. Starting with the hardware, both cameras feel pretty well put together, but the approach is different. The TORVO TD3 has that traditional dashcam design, with a 3.2-inch IPS LCD on the back, physical buttons underneath the screen. It feels solid in hand, and the buttons are easy to press without feeling overly stiff. We also get the rear camera, a long connection cable, cigarette lighter power cable, electrostatic sticker, installation tools, and a 64GB memory card, which is a nice addition considering the price. The Pelsee S3 Ultra feels a little more premium. We get a roughly 3.4-inch touchscreen, a sturdy main body, a removable mounting system, and a rear camera with a rotatable lens so we can fine-tune the viewing angle after installation. The box also includes the installation accessories, rear camera cable, and OBD cable for parking monitoring. And one of the biggest advantages here is that the Pelsee includes a 128GB memory card. So while the TORVO gives us 64GB, Pelsee doubles that storage and also gives us the OBD setup for parking mode right out of the box. Installation is pretty straightforward with both. With the TORVO, we mounted the front unit behind the rear view mirror, routed the cable through the headliner and trim, and connected the rear camera. The whole process is basically what we would expect from a normal dual-channel dashcam. For parking mode, though, we need the separate hardwire kit, so there is some additional installation involved if we want the full parking functionality. The Pelsee takes a slightly different approach, and honestly, this is one of the areas where it has an advantage. Instead of opening up the fuse box and dealing with fuse taps, we can use the included OBD cable. That gives us access to parking monitoring without having to go through a traditional hardwire installation. For someone who wants parking protection but doesn't want to spend time messing around inside the fuse box, that's a pretty big convenience. Now, when it comes to video quality, both cameras give us 4K recording up front, but the Pelsee takes things further with its low-light focused setup. The S3 Ultra uses a 4K front camera and a 2.5K rear camera, while the TORVO gives us 4K up front and full HD 1080p in the rear. So on paper, the Pelsee has the advantage in rear camera resolution. The TORVO's daytime footage is actually one of its strongest points. We found the 4K front footage sharp, with natural colors and detailed enough that license plates remain readable even when vehicles are some distance away. The wide lens gives us a broad view of the road without making the image look excessively distorted. The rear camera is only full HD, but it performs better than we would expect from a budget rear camera, with useful detail and decent license plate visibility even in lower light. The Pelsee, meanwhile, is designed more around getting the best possible image in difficult lighting. It uses its starlit system and low-light focused setup to maintain more usable detail when the light starts disappearing. So daytime recording is the main priority. The TORVO already gives us a lot for the money. But if nighttime and low-light footage are especially important, this is where we would lean toward the Pelsee. And this is probably the biggest difference between these two cameras. The TORVO's nighttime footage is solid for its price. Under streetlights, the Starlight night vision keeps license plates visible without excessively blowing out headlights, and the WDR helps balance bright and dark areas. In completely dark environments, there is some noise, which is expected at this price, but the footage remains usable. The Pelsee is built specifically to push low-light performance further. Its starlit approach is designed to preserve color and detail in darker environments, instead of simply producing a brighter but noisy image. So if we regularly drive at night, especially on roads with limited lighting, the Pelsee makes more sense. We're paying more, but this is one of the areas where that extra money actually goes towards something useful, rather than just adding another feature to the spec sheet. Both cameras also make getting footage off the camera much easier than dealing with a memory card every time. The Torvo connects through its Vidger app using 5G Wi-Fi, and we can view the live feed, browse recorded clips, download footage, and change settings directly from the phone. The interface is straightforward, and the 30-second clips make it easy to find a particular recording without digging through long files. GPS is also built in, so speed and location information can be embedded into the footage. The Pelsee uses Wi-Fi as well, with its app providing live view, playback, downloads, and access to settings. We can switch between front and rear views, download recorded clips directly to the phone, and manage things like resolution, loop recording, audio, collision sensitivity, and speed units. GPS is built in here too, so in terms of basic wireless convenience, both are doing what we would want. The Pelsee simply gives us a more feature-heavy overall package. Parking protection is another area where the two cameras take different approaches. The Torvo uses motion detection and the G sensor to trigger recording when the vehicle is parked. When it detects movement or an impact, it records a short clip and locks it. Motion detection works from both the front and rear cameras, and the system draws around 3 to 4 watts. It works well when the sensitivity is adjusted properly, although we found the default G sensor setting a little too sensitive for normal driving, especially over potholes. The Pelsee gives us parking guard as well, along with time-lapse recording, but the biggest advantage is how we power it. With the included OBD cable, we can get parking monitoring without a traditional fuse box hardwire. That makes the Pelsee a much more convenient choice for someone who specifically wants 24-hour vehicle protection but doesn't want to deal with a complicated installation. The Torvo keeps things relatively simple. We get 4K or 2K front recording options, loop recording, time-lapse, audio control, G-sensor adjustment, GPS stamping, rear camera mirror options, license plate input, screen settings, Wi-Fi, and the usual formatting and firmware options. There is no ADAS, but honestly, we don't see that as a major disadvantage because those systems can sometimes become more annoying than useful. The Pelsee gives us a touchscreen interface, voice commands, multiple recording resolutions, time-lapse options, parking guard, GPS, Wi-Fi, and smart ADAS. We can use voice commands to lock videos, turn the display off, switch between the front and rear cameras, take pictures, and control other functions without touching the screen. So if we're looking strictly at the number of features, the Pelsee definitely wins. And this is where things get interesting. If we're spending around $220 on the Pelsee S3 Ultra, we're getting better low-light performance, a higher resolution rear camera, a 128GB memory card, touchscreen controls, voice commands, and a much easier OBD-based parking setup. For someone who wants a more complete system and doesn't mind spending more, the Pelsee makes a lot of sense. But the TORVO TD3 is much harder to ignore from a pure value perspective. At around $99, we get 4K front recording, usable 1080p rear footage, GPS, Wi-Fi, a capable app, solid nighttime performance, a super capacitor design, and a 64GB card included. So between the Pelsee S3 Ultra and the TORVO TD3, we think the better choice really comes down to what we expect from our dashcam. If we want the best overall package, especially for nighttime driving and easier parking monitoring, we'd go with the Pelsee. But if we're looking at this strictly from a value for money perspective, the TORVO TD3 is the one that's really difficult to beat. At the end of the day, both are good choices, but they're really built for two different kinds of buyers.